One comment that comes up a fair amount on my videos is that rather than being the Antichrist, Donald Trump is actually the false prophet. So let's take a very quick look at how the Bible describes each of these two figures in the end times. First, here is how the Bible describes the Antichrist, and I've chosen 12 of the clearest descriptions. The Antichrist has the mouth of a lion, the Antichrist is boastful, the Antichrist is profoundly arrogant, the Antichrist purposely sows discord. The Antichrist throws truth to the ground. The Antichrist is a deceiver. The Antichrist denies the Father and the Son. The Antichrist is a vile person. The Antichrist is beloved in Israel. The Antichrist is obsessed with gold. The Antichrist has a covenant with many. The Antichrist has the ego to proclaim himself as God. Now let's look at the false prophet and how he is described in Revelation 13. The false prophet has two horns like a lamb. The false prophet speaks like a dragon. The false prophet is equal in power to the Antichrist. The false prophet causes the world to worship the Antichrist. The false prophet performs so-called miracles. The false prophet makes an image to the beast. The false prophet has power to give life to the image of the beast. The false prophet causes the world to receive the mark of the beast. Now let's look at if Donald Trump lines up with the descriptions for the Antichrist first. He unquestionably has the mouth of a lion. He is unquestionably boastful. He is absolutely arrogant, and he has a history of sowing discord. He has clearly thrown truth to the ground. His entire life has been about deception, and he has denied the Father and the Son when he said that he doesn't ask God for forgiveness nor bring God into that picture. He is denying the forgiveness from the Father and is denying the Savior he needs in Jesus. He is unquestionably a vile person, and I've made multiple videos about how vile he has been in so many things throughout his life. He is absolutely beloved in Israel. They are naming town squares and train stations after him. His image appears on temple coins, and he has received the Prince of Peace award from the Israel Heritage Foundation. He is absolutely obsessed with gold, and all one has to do is to look at the Oval Office since Trump moved back in as an example of how obsessed with gold Trump is. He has a covenant with many. He described his Abraham Accords from a couple years ago as the foundation for a wider peace in the Middle East, and that is what they're looking to strengthen now with an Abraham Accords 2, or as I'm starting to think, the Trump Accords, or even the Trump Covenant, but his name will appear on it in some way. But there will be many more nations added to the original Abraham Accords. And finally, the ego of Donald Trump is so immense that it's impossible to think of anyone else on the world scene who we could envision one day claiming to be God or claiming to have saved the world. That is perfectly in line with how Trump has already talked about himself over the last few years as the Savior. Now let's take a look at how he lines up with the false prophet. The two horns like a lamb tell us that the false prophet will appear to be a peaceful man on the surface. That cannot be said about Donald Trump. He is all about bluster and getting his way and denigrating others. He is not someone who appears lamb-like. The false prophet speaks like a dragon. Now this one you could say would line up with Trump, certainly because it sounds a lot like the mouth of a lion. The false prophet is equal in power to the Antichrist, and this one we actually won't count because we're trying to determine if Trump is the Antichrist or the false prophet. The false prophet causes the world to worship the Antichrist, and I would just ask, can we imagine a scenario when Trump wants to point the world to worship someone else other than Donald Trump? He is all about bringing attention and praise onto himself, not onto another person. The false prophet performed so-called miracles that has not been done by Trump, obviously. The false prophet makes an image to the beast, not done by Trump. The false prophet has power to give life to the image of the beast, also not done by Trump. And the false prophet causes the world to receive the mark of the beast. That is not done by Trump. And I know some of you, unfortunately, try to proclaim that vaccines were the mark of the beast. Vaccines do not line up with how the Bible describes the mark of the beast. They just do not. There were billions and billions of people who did not receive a vaccine, and they have been able to buy and sell just fine. That fact alone should tell us that COVID vaccines were not the mark. And in addition, the Bible speaks of multiple pestilences during the last days, so it would be a huge mistake for us to think that the coronavirus was the one and only pestilence during the last days, or its vaccine the one and only vaccine. There are more of these things coming. But anyway, back to the descriptions of the Antichrist and the false prophet. We can see that Trump lines up with each and every description of the Antichrist up and down the line, and there's simply no one else on the world scene who matches all of these things. And when we look over at the false prophet, we can see how he does match one of these descriptions. He does speak like a dragon, but the other things are not Donald Trump. So if we look at how the Bible teaches us about the false prophet, and then we look at the man, Donald Trump, it is simply a mismatch. However, it is stunning how perfectly Trump lines up with the Antichrist. And that's why so many of us, I think, are mystified when other people can't see it. Maybe it's because they're wrapped up in the things of this world, such as MAGA, or maybe they just haven't researched it too well. Maybe they're blinded by politics, or maybe they just don't care. But the descriptions of the Antichrist are like a giant neon sign pointing us directly at one man, Donald J. Trump. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with another video.